Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of Breaking the Cycle. This is my podcast where I talk about how childhood trauma and addiction correlate. If you are watching this, then you will see that I'm in the exact same place, wearing the exact same clothes as the first informational part of episode 1, and that is because I'm filming all the informational parts at the exact same time. If you are just listening to this, then I snitched on myself. Whoops. But if you're curious, I am filming them at the exact same time. In the first episode, I talked about exactly what abuse does to the brain, and I brought on my guests to talk about their struggle with addiction. So if you have not seen the first episode, I highly recommend you go and check that out. I will have it linked in the description if you have not seen it. Now, as stated before, I filmed this podcast in two-part segments, and I made a little bit of a mistake. You guys probably won't be able to notice, but I noticed, so yeah, I'm gonna say. I filmed all the interview parts before the informational parts, so when I bring on my guest, I may mention that I talk about an entirely different topic in the informational section than I actually will. This is because I had to do the interviews first, and I have just now gotten to the informational part, sadly. So a couple things have changed. The way I want everything to, flow smoothly has kind of changed a little bit. So the topic that I state right now is what we are going to be discussing in this episode. So with that being said, in today's episode, I will talk about what addiction is and the statistics behind adverse childhood experiences and how they are linked to addiction. Disclaimer, like in the first episode, there will be heavy mentions of child abuse, childhood trauma, addiction, substance abuse, substance use, all that jazz, and everything that comes with it. So if you are not in the mindset to listen to such topics, if the topics are too sensitive for you to listen to, then I suggest you don't listen to this podcast. But if you're staying, then I really hope you enjoy and I really appreciate your time. So with today's topic, I have way too much personal experience with it, more than I would like to, but considering I'm doing my research project on it, maybe, whatever. Anyways, my entire bloodline is filled with addicts, like all people on my dad's side, all people on my mom's side, addicts, whether that be alcohol, like actual drug use, sex, gambling, full addicts. Even my partner struggles with addiction. He may be listening to this, so shout out Bay. He's in rehab right now and he's doing great. He's doing amazing. So kudos to him. Addiction is a disease, and it's a hard disease. It takes over a lot of people. It ruins a lot of families. It ruins the addict themselves. It's a disease and it's not a pretty one. It can be described as the continuous use of mood-altering, addicting substances or behaviors. I do not blame any addict for their addiction. I wholeheartedly believe that it is due to external sources, and for the sake of this research project, childhood trauma. And I'm not the only one that believes that it is not the addict's fault. Addiction more times than less is because that person wants to escape from reality. They don't want to be in their own body anymore. Something has happened to them and they just want to escape it entirely. And again, for the sake of this podcast, that is childhood trauma. There's something physically, chemically wrong with their brain, due to the trauma they have experienced, that craves some sort of relief. Sadly, addicts believe that the easiest way to get this relief is by doing drugs, and as mentioned in the first episode, a lot of the time, a lot of children and teens don't have access to the proper care to get help, such as getting on actual prescribed medication to help with their issues, such as anxiety or depression or something like that. So they do turn to drugs instead. So you can't even really blame them. They're looking for relief, and yeah. Research shows that children that have experienced more than 4 ACEs in their lifetime are more at risk of developing substance abuse disorders by 7%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. But the more that number goes up, the higher a percentage of more mental illnesses also increase. I mentioned the word ACE before, and ACE just simply means adverse childhood experiences. So that is the trauma that a child is experiencing. So if let me dive a little deeper into that. If a child experiences more than 4 adverse childhood experiences, it means they have experienced a divorce. They have experienced their one of their parents or one of their guardians using substances in the house. They have experienced some sort of trauma um, in their life. So that is what an adverse childhood experience is. So if you have experienced more than 4 of those in your life, then you are 7% more likely to abuse substances. Um, and as I stated, that number does go up the more that you experience. Um, so that is quite scary, but moving on. Yes, there are many reasons people become addicts, but abuse has been a number one link to the use of drugs um, for quite some time, and even like as more research is done, the more solid, concrete evidence of that there is. Um, so I would just like to talk about my own little personal experience with addiction, and how addiction can affect those around you. Um, Addiction is not easy to go through. It's not easy to watch. It's not easy. It's not easy. I don't know how other way to put it. Addiction is not an easy thing to hear about, talk about, experience. Um, but as I stated in the beginning, addiction runs in my family, and it is a very near and dear topic to my heart. Um, I have seen and I have lost many people to addiction. Um, I lost my father to addiction when I was 11, um, which was really a struggle to see. And it really made me think, like, did I do something wrong? Could I have done more? But again, I was literally 11 years old. There was nothing I could have done. Um, and I mention this not to get sympathy or anything of the sorts. It's to show that even if you have loved ones around you, um, addiction addiction doesn't care. And sadly, it did affect my father, which then in turn affected me. Um, my partner has struggled with addiction for a very long time and is just now getting help with it. But I will say that I think that if he did not begin to get help, that I don't even think that he would be alive right now. So addiction is a struggle. Addiction is hard. Addiction is a journey. Yeah, I don't know. Addiction's hard. It's hard to live with. It's hard to watch addiction. It's hard to be an addict. I'm not an addict, so I can't speak for everybody. But I don't know. Shit's hard, man. Shit's hard. That concludes the second episode of Breaking the Cycle. I hope you guys enjoy it. I can't wait for you guys to listen to the final episode where I talk about all the different types of treatments that are available. You are not alone. But I would like to now take it over to the guest part, the lovely guests that I will be having on to talk about their own personal experiences with childhood trauma and their struggle to not fall into addiction. So, without further ado, I hope you guys really enjoyed. I really hope you guys enjoyed my guest. And I will see you in the third and final episode. Bye. Oopsies, almost forgot to mention the sources of everything will be linked below because, as always, this is a research project. So, every single source, all the information that I'm giving you is information that I have found. So, all that information that I found will be in the description box for whatever I was talking about in this segment. On to the guest. Thank you. Good morning, evening, afternoon, night, whenever you are listening or watching this. We are back with part 2 of Breaking the Cycle, where I speak on how childhood trauma and addiction correlate. We are now on the second segment, the second part of the podcast, where I bring on my guest to speak about their personal experience with the topic at hand. In the first segment of this episode, I spoke on the different kinds of abuse and trauma a child may experience, along with explaining what exactly ACE is and the science that goes along with it. Again, I am reading off of a piece of paper because I'm not a pro podcaster. Sorry, guys. A couple disclaimers before I have my guests join us. Their name will remain anonymous to keep their identity private and safe. They have completely consented to all the questions I'm going to ask them, and what they say, what they are about to share may be triggering to some. If you are sensitive to the topic of childhood trauma and addiction, please leave now. Take some time for yourself. We're not trying to trigger anybody. All the information that is about to be stated is somebody's own personal experience with trauma and addiction, and this person does not speak for everybody. So please proceed with caution, but I hope that this information is helpful to somebody. Thank you. Okay, this is my second guest. Say hello.
Hi.
Okay. The first question that I'm going to ask you is could you please explain your childhood?
My childhood?
Your childhood.
In comparison to others, it's not the worst. But it's also not the best. Both parents were drug addicts. Our dad, I know for sure, he wasn't really there. He liked meth better than us. um, so he it was there early on. I have more memories, but other than that, about 4 or 5 is whenever he really fell off. Our mother tried her best. I believe she fell too, but we were loved. I can say that, but they did have their struggles. It was in and out of rental homes, friends' houses, who those friends most definitely also did drugs. You could say 1 or 2 houses were probably like drug dens per se. So definitely around a lot of not very child friendly people. I know a few people who definitely shouldn't have been around children who were. So, not great, not good, not bad. Would I have liked a better childhood? Absolutely. I would have loved to have both of my parents in my life, but they were not there.
What happened to your father?
He died. T. When I was 17, the meth took him. That dumb bitch. I was in a bad relationship with another woman who he had a few children with. By a few, I mean 7, half a dozen, half a baker's dozen. um, he, we got to see him like 2 weeks before he died, and I truly believed at that encounter that he was getting better. That was the time out of the many. I'm going to rehab. I'm getting clean. That was the one time I actually believed him. And then she got back into his life, and that night he died. We had to unplug him. He swallowed a bag of meth, it busted, he got a fever, and went brain dead. Yeah, real cool.
Is that all you would like to say about your childhood?
What else do you want me to say? He was a drug addict. He chose drugs over his own children. Our mother also fell to drugs. She no longer is on meth, but she does struggle with drinking. She smokes like a chimney, of course, but she tries. She really does. That's I think what really makes a good parent is a parent who actually tries. Even if they're not able to do their absolute best, even if they're not like the best parent in the world, as long as they're trying and you can see that, that's what counts. She tried. I don't think he tried.
Moving on to our next question.
Question
number two. What kind of trauma did you experience? Whether that be mental, physical, sexual.
To my immediate knowledge, no sexual. Okay. Mental, a lot.
What kind of mental trauma?
Abandonment issues. Because daddy wasn't really there. For a little bit, mommy wasn't really there. And it was like, at one point, our dad, one of the few visits he did, he came with that woman with a baby. That pissed me off. I think I was like 12. And I think you can imagine a preteen, teenager, a preteen who is trying to figure out and go through why are my parents not like a lot of my other friends' parents. I'm not saying everyone else's life is perfect, but a lot of my friends had both parents in their lives. Or they were divorced, they at least knew why, and they got to see both parents on a regular basis. But no, we were living with our grandmother, and she did a lot. She's good, but she also caused some mental trauma. She didn't have a great childhood either. She was.
Did she
I think
experience
she
trauma?
experienced. I think she experienced trauma, and did not have the best childhood as well. And so she put a lot of her insecurities onto us. They were put on me and they started to become my own, but I was able to combat that. But a lot of abandonment issues. You can imagine one day your dad comes by with another woman's baby and you're like, oh, so you've just put us to the side. You don't love us anymore. No physical abuse. I was never beat per se. I think disciplined, I would call it. There were belts. There were spankings. There was a slap in the face. That was my bad. That's my bad. I was being a little. I was out of pocket. It was discipline.
I don't think anybody should ever slap a child in the face.
No, I would, but
Good thing you don't have kids.
good thing I don't have kids. I mean, not like a toddler. No, I was like, I don't know. I think I was like 14, maybe. I was in her.
Stop moving the mic.
I was in her face. I was like, we were argument, and she was just like, no, I can't. I was like, oh. I went real quick. So really, no physical abuse. I would say, just a lot of mental. I did in middle school, so about 6th grade. I started really getting a lot. I guess you could say depression. I don't think I was ever depressed, but if you asked a therapist, they would say yes, I was depressed. I developed trichotillomania. Real long word, real fancy word for saying I pull my hair out. I did see therapy over it. I did develop a disorder of some kind. A lot of anxiety. A lot of anxiety. I was put on anxiety medication at 18. I was on it for a year. And my anxiety is a lot better. I do believe that medication gave my brain the proper tools in order to perceive and work through things.
Do you think that moving out of the house helped with your anxiety?
Probably, because I did move out at 18 once I graduated. I was kind of a little bit of a floater, couch floater. Yeah. I should believe a lot of anxiety was being put onto me by our grandmother, living with her. I do love her, but she causes a lot of issues.
Okay. A lot of trauma to digest. With all that trauma,
Is there a lot of trauma?
with all that trauma, have you thought of turning to drugs or alcohol to numb your pain?
I have.
How often would you
On the
would you say?
daily. No. I don't do drugs. I have not touched drugs. I've never smoked anything. I've hit a vape,
God
but
forbid.
God forbid, a little nick here and there. Okay, but that's it. I've never smoked any marijuana. I've never, whatever. I've never done any drugs. Never popped anything. Never smoked anything. Snorted anything. Ingested anything. The only substance I have touched is alcohol. I do like to drink every once in a while. At one point, it was kind of like maybe I drink too often, so I have cut back. I was able to cut back, but I don't. I do drink about. I do think about drinking almost every day though. I'm around people who do drugs, and it is hard to say no. But I do say no because I know if I do something even one time, that'll be it. I probably won't be able to stop.
Okay, well, wonderful. Then that brings me to my next question of what keeps you from falling into addiction?
Fear of becoming what I've seen people become on drugs. I don't want to become a father. I don't really want to become our mother. I love this. I don't fault her. She had a life traumatized childhood. She can't help what she went through. She can't help how she handled it. But I do think I want I don't want to do that. To keep the life I have. I'm moving forward pretty good, and I would like to keep accomplishments coming as they can. And I know if I fall off, start doing drugs, I'm not going to be able to keep those accomplishments coming. I'm not going to be able to move up in my job. I'm not going to be able to keep paying for my car because I know all my money and all my time will start to go towards bad things.
Okay, last and final question. Do you think if more people hear personal stories on how addiction truly affects the population, do you think that it could help prevent the spread of addiction or at least make people feel more comfortable to reach out and get help?
I believe it would make people more comfortable reaching out, getting help. But I think people's mentality, some things have to change. Because even I struggle with this. Like friends or family who I see struggling with addiction, even I don't take the correct route to help them. I I know what the correct routes are, but I get angry and I'm like, hey, you're an idiot. Why are you doing this? And I feel like a lot of people also get that way. They get angry, they get disappointed, they don't know how to properly help people. And people who are struggling are probably also angry and disappointed, and maybe they don't think they have a problem. Because you have to recognize you have a problem. You have to want help. If you don't want help or don't think you need help, if you don't think you have a problem, you're not gonna. Yeah, you can go to rehab 100 times, but you're never gonna come out successful, or you're gonna relapse.
Like it.
So I think the system needs to change. I think people need to be educated properly. Um, I don't know if it would truly stop people from forming addiction, because I know at least in the state that we're in, a southern state, a lot of the programs they teach in school aren't very good. The DARE program, that sucks. In fifth grade, you're like 9, 10 years old, and the school system is basically introducing a lot of kids to drugs. I know a lot of kids who got introduced to pot through DARE and then started smoking pot.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yes,
The system is
the
fucked.
system is fucked. So there needs to be a new system, a more improved system, and a better way to introduce kids to the struggles, because it was basically just like a cop saying this is bad and rot your brain. Basically, this is your brain off drugs. This is your brain on drugs. It was essentially that meme. I don't. That's not gonna help kids. Kids don't fully understand. Even as a kid, going through a family, like living in a family that was going through those struggles, and I saw what it did to people. Even then, the Dare program didn't help me. It didn't help. So that definitely needs to be fixed. People are always gonna struggle. As long as there's a way for people to get high, they're gonna get high. Even if you take all the drugs off the street, people will still find ways. So it's not like there's going to be a perfect world where no one does drugs and no one has any addictions or struggles. Just like there's no world where everyone can go through it trauma free, because people are people. And unfortunately, people do bad things.
Well said. Lastly, is there anything else that you would like to tell the podcast, share, any advice?
Don't do drugs. No. If you do drugs, do them safely. Do your research. Learn. Have people to help you. Have people set up boundaries, and have people help you keep those boundaries. Seek help if you need help. There is help out there. It may be hard to find, it may be hard to reach out to, but it's there. One way or another, someone's there.
You just gotta want it.
You just gotta want it. You just have to get the power to do that. Also, I'm sorry if my answers were not great. I'm tired. I worked 13 hours yesterday.
Well, that was my guest.
Hi.
And this is the second episode of Breaking the Cycle.
Number 2.
I hope you guys thoroughly enjoyed. And I will see you in the third and final episode. So that was my guest. I hope you guys really enjoyed listening to her story. I know the story may hit close to home for some people. So, again, I would just like to really, really reiterate that if you are struggling and you need help, please go out and get the help that you need. It is available for anybody and everybody. So, do not feel afraid or ashamed to get the help that you deserve. But that concludes episode 2 of Breaking the Cycle. And this concludes the second segment of the second episode. And I will see you guys for the third and final episode where I talk about treatments and how you really can get the help that you need, along with the really deep dive into how childhood trauma and addiction truly do correlate and what we can do to help. Thank you guys.